What's up, you guys? We are on day 4. We're going to be covering Genesis chapters 13 to 15. I am going to be reading out of the NLT. This is my NLT study Bible, which I really love. I've been using this one a lot. And again, we are doing the Bible in 52 weeks, which is a year-long Bible study. If you're finding me right now, I highly encourage you to catch the first videos. And remember the topic for this week, because it's gonna get hard. If it's not hard already, it's gonna get hard. But the topic for this week is there's nothing too hard for God. So even though your situation or your circumstance can be hard in the moment, it's not, however, too hard for God. And in full transparency, I'll just share with you guys. We had a really rough night last night. We deal with chronic illness, in particular systemic lupus, lupus nephritis, Raynaud's, just all kinds of things that come along with chronic illness. So it was a rough night last night. And to be honest with you, I didn't get any sleep last night at all. I was massaging my daughter's foot to try and get her some relief from some of the pains that lupus causes. And, in those moments, it's hard to see yourself out of it. It gets so difficult. And I feel as Christians that we don't really discuss the depths of our despair. We present ourselves with a covering. And what I mean by that is it kind of reminds me of Adam and Eve. When Adam and Eve were first in the garden and they were naked, they were walking around, showing themselves because they didn't have that knowledge yet. Between good and evil. And then as soon as they had that knowledge, they covered themselves. And for me, it feels like as Christians, we almost feel this need to cover ourselves, to not show our weaknesses, to try and prove that we're so strong and that we're so good and we do everything right. And we have no struggles, no failures, no anxiety, no depression, no thoughts of suicide, none of this stuff. And that's so far from the truth. As Christian, we're not exempt from struggles from the world. The Bible clearly says that in this world we will have trouble, but we're almost like held to a higher standard, almost like we can't show our weakness. And you know what? I refuse to be in line with that. I refuse to not be able to show transparency and weakness, because I am weak. My strength is in God. What you guys see is, what you see after I have met with God. What you don't see is the mourning that happens in the night, the tears that happen in the night, the pleas, the cries that happen in the night. You see what God gives me in the morning, because God gives us a joy in the morning, because there is joy found in the morning. And so you don't see the rough nights. And so I just want to be I just want to open the conversation that as Christians, we struggle too. And just because we're struggling as Christians doesn't mean that we're not in our Bible. It doesn't mean that we're not fasting. It doesn't mean that we're not at the feet of Jesus. We can be at the feet of Jesus and still be in grief and still be in pain and still be crying, because it reminds me of, I think it's like one of the sentences in the Bible where it says, Jesus wept. Jesus wept. If Jesus wept, how are we not going to weep as well? And so I hope that this just encourages someone that if you are struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts or chronic illness or just despair, desperation, whatever it is, if you are struggling, you're not alone. You're not alone. And just because you're struggling, it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong or bad. We all fall short of the glory of God. And so I just want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to keep going. I want to encourage you that you're not the only one. I want to encourage you that, we are all weak and we find our strength in God. We find our strength in God. And so anyways, again, week 1, there's nothing too hard for God, but let's just get right into it. On day 4, Genesis chapters 13 to 15. Again, I'm in the NLT, and we're going to talk about Abram and Lot separate. So it says, So Abram left Egypt and traveled north into the Negev along with his wife and Lot and all that they owned. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. From the Negev, they continued to traveling by stages toward Bethel, and they pitched their tents toward Bethel and Ai, where they had camped before. This was the same place where Abram had built the altar, and there he worshipped the Lord again. Lot, who was traveling with Abram, had also become very wealthy with flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and many tents. But the land could not support both Abram and Lot with all their flocks and herds living so close together. So disputes broke out between the herdsmen of Abram and Lot. At that time, Canaanites and Perizzites, it's not parasites, it's like Perizzites, were also living in the land. Finally, Abram said to Lot, let's not allow this conflict to come between us or our herdsmen. After all, we are close relatives. The whole countryside is open to you. Take your choice of any section of the land you want. And then it says, and we will separate. If you want the land to the left, then I'll take the land on the right. If you prefer the land on the right, then I'll go to the left. Lot took a long look at the fertile plains of the Jordan Valley in the direction of Zoar. The whole area was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, or the beautiful land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot chose for himself the whole Jordan Valley to the east of them. He went there with his flocks and servants and parted company with his uncle Abram. So Abram settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot moved his tents to a place near Sodom and settled among the cities of the plain. But the people of this area were extremely wicked and constantly sinned against the Lord. After Lot had gone, the Lord said to Abram, look as far as you can see in every direction, north and south, east and west. I am giving all this land as far as you can see to you and your descendants as a permanent possession, and I will give you so many descendants that like the dust of the earth, they cannot be counted. Go and walk through the land in every direction, for I am giving it to you. So Abram moved his camp to Hebron and settled near the oak grove belonging to Mamre. There he built another altar to the Lord. So that covers chapter 14. Now we're in chapter 13. Again, we're going to chapter 15. So there is, oh, wow, this is going to be pretty short. There's just 2 more chapters. So now we're talking about where Abram rescues Lot. About this time, war broke out in the region. King Amraphel of Babylonia, King Arioch of Elasar, King Kedorlaomer of Elam, and King Tidal of Goim fought against King Bera of Sodom, King Bersha of Gomorrah, King Shinar of Admah, King Shemeber of Zeboim, and King of Bela, also called Zor. The second group of kings joined forces in Siddim Valley, that is the valley of the Dead Sea. For 12 years, they had been subject to King Kedorlaomer, but in the 13th year, they rebelled against him. By the way, I did listen to these chapters on Audible beforehand, but I still don't remember the pronunciation of this, so we'll just get through it. And then it says, 1 year later, Kedorlaomer and his allies arrived and defeated the Rephites of Ashtoreth, Karnaim, the Zuzites at Ham, the Emites at Sheva, Kirathim, and the Horites at Mount Seir, as far as El Paran at the edge of the wilderness. And then they turned back and came to En Mishpat, now called Kadesh, and conquered all the territory of the Amalekites and also the Amorites living in Hazazon Tamar. Then the rebel kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Adam, Zeboim, and Bela, also called Zor, prepared for battle in the valley of the Dead Sea. They fought against the king Kedorlaomer of Elam, King Tidal of Goim, King Amraphel of Babylonia, and King Arioch of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Oh my gosh. I need a breath. Okay. These names. Like, I just can't wait till we get to like Proverbs and Philippians and, like all of these books that are not talking about like all these names making me look like a fool up here. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all of those are awesome. Like, I can't wait till we get to those books. But anyways, let's just move on. So it says, 4 kings against 5. We're on verse 10. It says, as it happened, the valley of the Dead Sea was filled with tar pits, and as the army of the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into the tar pits, while the rest escaped into the mountains. The victorious invaders then plundered Sodom and Gomorrah and headed for home, taking with them all the spoils of war and the food supplies. They also captured Lot, Abram's nephew, who lived in Sodom, and carried off everything he owned. But one of Lot's men escaped and reported everything to Abram the Hebrew, who was living in near the oak grove belonging to Mamre the Amorite. Mamre and his relatives Eshcol and Aner were Abram's allies. When Abram heard that his nephew Lot had been captured, he mobilized the 318 trained men who had been born into his household. Then he pursued Kedorlaomer's army until he caught up with them at Dan. There he divided his men and attacked it during the night. Kedorlaomer's army fled, but Abram chased them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. Abram recovered all the goods that had been taken, and he brought back his nephew Lot with his possessions and all the women and other captives. And now it says, I remember this word, Melchizedek, something like that. Blesses Abram. After Abram returned from his victory after Kedorlaomer and all his allies, the king of Sodom went to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. And Melchizedek, the king of Salem and a priest of God Most High, brought Abram some bread and wine. Melchizedek blessed Abram with this blessing. Be blessed, Abram, by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has defeated your enemies for you. Okay. And then it says, then Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of all the goods he had removed. The king of Sodom said to Abram, give back my people who were captured, but you may keep for yourself all the goods you had recovered. Abram replied to the king of Sodom, I solemnly swear to the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a single thread or sandal thong from what belongs to you. Otherwise, you might say, I am the one who made Abram rich. I will accept only what my young warriors have already eaten, and I request that you give a fair share of the goods to my allies, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Okay, now we're in chapter 15, which says the Lord's covenant promise to Abram. And this is the last chapter for today, which is so good because I'm telling you guys, I did not get sleep. And my eyes are like watering, and I am struggling today. I'm not gonna lie. So yes, day 4, Genesis chapters 13 to 15. So let's go on to 15, which is just this kind of small portion here, and then 15, right? And then this very small portion here, and we'll be done with the day 4. Alrighty. Okay, so chapter 15, and let me just double check on the book. Yes, for day 4 is Genesis chapters 13 to 15. Tomorrow we'll be reading Genesis chapters 16 to 18. I believe we get through with all of Genesis in about 2 weeks, which is pretty cool. Okay, so chapter 15 says the Lord's covenant promise to Abram. Sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said to him, do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you, and your reward will be great. It says, but Abram replied, O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings when I don't even have a son? Isn't that so true? Like sometimes we're just like, all the blessings don't matter. Like if you don't have a son, if you don't have a child, if you don't have health, like nothing else matters, you know, take care of your health. That's like one of the most important things. It says, since you've given me no children, Eliezer of Damascus, a servant in my household, will inherit all my wealth. You have given me no descendants of my own. No, so one of my servants would be my heir. And it says, then the Lord said to him, no, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own who will be your heir. Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have. And Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith. The Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith. Then the Lord told him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of Chaldeans to give you this land as your possession. But Abram replied, oh, sovereign Lord, how can I be sure that I will actually possess it? And I love that he has a real conversation with God. I feel like sometimes we feel that we can't have real conversations with God. Like we can't tell God, or we can't ask God questions. We can't tell God, God, I'm hurting because of this. God, this is how I feel. It's almost like you have to come to God covered up again. Like the theme is covering yourself up, like not coming, honestly, not coming transparently. And here's the thing. It's like, whether you come to God clean, whether you come to him honest, he knows everything. Like he knows your thoughts. He knows how many hairs are on your head. He knows everything. And so something that I've been doing is really focusing on coming to God honestly and saying to God, because here's the thing, when you've been praying for a miracle for a very long time, like I've been praying, I think for about 7 years. My daughter is 11 years old right now. And we first kind of started dealing with issues of lupus when she was 4. She was officially diagnosed at 5 years old. And then, for our church, the word for our church is thrive, okay? Thrive for 2025. But guess what? How we start our year? We start our year at Rady Children's Hospital, okay? I think we got there, I believe, on January 2nd, and we were there for 2 nights. And so while the term for the church is thrive, we are starting in the hospital. And that was so incredibly discouraging. That was so discouraging because this is how I feel. I feel like I'm more than ready to thrive. My bags are packed. I got my ticket and I'm ready to go on the Thrive bus. Like I'm already waiting. Like I'm already right here waiting for this to happen. And it's like, oh, wait, actually your daughter's going to get admitted for a couple of days. And so, yeah, and so again, it could just be so discouraging. Chronic illness can be so discouraging and waiting. And now I feel like I lost what my actual point was. Okay, yes, where Abram, it says on verse 8, it says, but Abram replied, oh, sovereign Lord, how can I be sure that I will actually possess it? And so he's, God is telling him, hey, this is the promise that I have for you. And Abram is saying, but how can I actually be sure that I will possess it? And how many of us are in that? I know that I'm in where God has given me a vision of my daughter's healing, where and here's the thing, I know he can do it. I have no doubt that he can do it. It's just are you going to choose to do it? And when are you going to do it? And so I'm almost how can I be sure that we're going to possess it? How can I be sure that we're going to possess it? And so I just feel and going through this for a while, give yourself grace, give yourself love and time to process things. I know when we came back home, I had to process things because it was very traumatic being there because I wasn't expecting to be there. I wasn't planning to be there. And so I remember I was laying in my bed the first morning that we came home. I knocked out that night. And when I woke up in the morning and I looked to my left and there was a pile of clean clothes I had to put away. And I'm just I just felt like crying because I'm just oh my gosh, this was just so traumatic. And I have this clean clothes I have to put away. And life is still moving on. And this is not where I expected myself to be. And so, that's just part of the importance of just kind of constantly being in your word, is trading in that despair, trading in that discouragement for, what does God say? What is he saying? What is he still saying? What is he still reminding us of? But also, just to clarify, it's still hard. It's still hard to get through it. It's still hard to get through it. And it's okay to have an honest conversation and to ask God, how can I be sure that I will actually possess it? Have that conversation with God, because I feel that in just being transparent with God, um, He's able to better heal you and encourage you and minister to you when you are giving it to Him, when you are like, this is my weakness, this is where I am actually at, this is where I'm finding myself, can you meet me here, can you bring me out of this position, can you bring me out of this despair, can you bring me out of these questions, can you bring me out of this moment, can you bring me out of this grief, can you bring me out of this pain, because it is real. And so I'm asking you, how can I be sure that I will possess it? And so I invite you to have those honest conversations with Him. I feel like it helps me when I can tell God, I'm hurt, because it hasn't happened. I feel like it helps me when I can have that honest conversation and say, I know you can, I don't doubt that you can do it, I'm just hurting while I'm waiting because of what I have to see, because I see my daughter suffering in the meantime. And you guys, I have to pause this real quick because my Mac is actually going to die. And let me just plug this in real quick. Okay, you guys, I apologize. I must have forgotten to, that's right, I forgot to charge my Mac, because just long story. But anyway, so let's just finish up chapter 15. So we were in verse 8, and it says, but Abram replied, O sovereign Lord, how can I be sure that I will actually possess it? And verse 9 says, the Lord told him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. So Abram presented all these to him and killed them. Then he cut each animal down the middle and laid the halves side by side. He did not, however, cut the birds in half. Some vultures swooped down to eat the carcasses, but Abram chased them away. As the sun was going down, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a terrifying darkness came down over him. Then the Lord said to Abram, you can be sure that your descendants will be strangers in a foreign land where they will be oppressed as slaves for 400 years. But I will punish the nation that enslaves them, and in the end, they will come away with great wealth. As for you, you will die in peace and be buried at a ripe old age. After 4 generations, your descendants will return here to this land, for the sins of the Amorites do not yet warrant their destruction. Verse 17 says, after the sun went down and darkness fell, Abram saw a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch pass between the halves of the carcasses. So the Lord made a covenant with Abram that day and said, I have given this land to your descendants all the way from the border of Egypt to the great Euphrates River. The land now occupied by the Kenites, Kenizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. And that's the end of chapter 15. Yes, we did it today. I knew it was going to be difficult, but we did it, and we're going to keep going. So thank you guys again for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe right now. Let me hear you in the comments. A shout out to Pam, my girl, for that amazing comment. Go check out her comments. When we were, I believe it might be video 1, day 1, when we were talking about Adam and Eve and how God took a rib from Adam to make Eve, and how Pam put in the comments, she looked up, what do the ribs do? And, the ribs, I almost knocked over this, the ribs, protect your vital organs. And so go check out her comment. It's so good. And that's why I wanted to do this with you guys, because you guys will catch things that I miss. And so don't be scared to share them. I want to read your comments. Like, poof, it blows my mind. So anyways, shout out to you, Pam. Woo! All right. Bye, you guys.